very, very warm and pleasant welcome to you this beautiful Monday morning, beg your pardon, on Souk News Television here in the city of Lagos. It is my pleasure to say a very, very warm welcome. I am David Chiedu, and as usual on Market Insights, we take you through the tunnels, if you like, through the labyrinth, the very intricate labyrinths of the Nigerian economy, the Nigerian market, and of course paving the way for more ideas with which to shape certain policies that affect said market and by extension affect you and I. Welcome once again. Today on the program we're talking about Nigeria's plan, or the federal government of Nigeria's plan to expand its tax net and base, and of course the implications therein for economic growth. Now, as I said, that's exactly what the federal government wants to do, and they're trying to do this through the Tax Reforms Committee. They're making plans to bring more eligible individuals and entities into the tax net in order to increase revenue and to meet its obligations to its citizens, which of course pretty much as it were. Now, it also aims to actualize this particular objective through a project named the Tax Identification Consolidation and Collaboration, that is TICC. Now, this particular project will widen the tax net and also the tax base in line with the newly proposed Economic Stabilization Bills, ESB, which is set to be sent to the National Assembly. Now, the government is also planning to collaborate with state governments to suspend certain taxes on small businesses and vulnerable populations to give them a breath of fresh air. Now, what this means in real terms economically for both individuals and businesses alike, that is a question on the minds of most Nigerians. And we'll discuss this and more on the program this morning. We're joined in the studio live by public affairs analyst, an author, scholar, and a researcher, Mr. Kingsley Ndubueze A. Good morning, Mr. Ayoze. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Good morning. It's my pleasure having me around.
Right. Now, let's delve straight to it, but to get your thoughts on the surface generally with what the federal government is planning to do. Now, key phrase, bringing in eligible, quote-unquote, individuals into the tax bracket, as it were. And also, the sole aim or sole purpose of this is to increase revenue and to meet its financial obligations. Just on the surface, what are your thoughts?
Thank you once again for having me. As we already know, within the system, not all people are paying tax, and the government is desirous of this because of the negative impact that is having in our revenue collection. So in view of this, the President and Commander-in-Chief, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR, late last year, inaugurated the Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform Committee, ably headed by Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, FCA, FCCA. Part of the mandate given to that committee was to holistically look at the Nigerian taxscape, review all existing laws, and think of how best to make the laws to be functional. And part of the mandate given to them was to either expunge outdated laws and recommend new laws that will help drive the economy. No economy can actually progress meaningfully without a corresponding increment in revenue base. I think it's in that light that the committee have recommended a lot. And part of it has to do with the Economic Stabilization Bill, which has recommended enormous incentive. Part of it is to think of how best to bring in more people. Because if you go to the informal sector, where we have the businessmen and women selling at the lower chamber, not all of them are really paying tax. And even what they are paying may not be adequate enough to assist the government to meet the challenges that confront us vis-a-vis provision of basic infrastructure, vis-a-vis giving us the desired security that we all yearn for, providing basic health care. So it is in view of this shortfall that this committee have recommended that we need to expand the tax net and also increase the tax base. By expanding the tax net, we are not trying to increase the rate, because that's where people have been having some kind of misconception. The moment they see the word increasing, they have not really taken time to look at what exactly are we increasing. We want to bring in people from outside, the individuals and corporate organizations that prior to this period have not been paying tax or paying the desired tax that will assist the government to meet the enormous challenges. So that's exactly what that statement holds, trying to widen up, bringing more persons, bringing more corporate organizations to come in, because when all these people, groups, organizations, corporate agencies come into the tax base and they pay taxes, that shortfall that we have been crying for can actually be breached. So that's my thoughts on that particular issue.
Now, to follow up with that, there have been a few concerns with regards to the timing of this TICC, Tax Identification, Collaboration and Consolidation. Now, some stakeholders, whose voice are quite loud as far as economic matters are concerned, said the timing isn't particularly the best, because at this point in time, it could lead to stifling some businesses and, shocking the system all the more, putting more pressure. What are your thoughts on this?
There is no other time other than now that the economy is actually facing some kind of turbulence or some rough edges. So on the part of government, I think they have done the right thing to have given that mandate to the Tax Fiscal and Policy Reform Committee, and the committee have responded. So to me, this is the time. There is no other time. We have to kickstart now and hope that in no distant time, this recommendation will actually yield that desired result that will help transform the economy. And again, more importantly, reduce the issue of poverty. There is high rate of poverty in the land. Hunger is actually alarming. But when these groups, individuals that have not been captured prior to now have been captured and they pay their taxes rightly, you will be rest assured that government will now have adequate funding to meet the needs of the public. So to me, the time is now, and we have to start off immediately.
Now, we're seeing the Tax Reform Committee at this point in time moving to also simplify and to harmonize taxes, bringing them, or if you like, compressing them from over 60, which it is right now, and about 200 levies scattered here and there, to about 8, as it were, which is a good thing on paper. However, over the years, with the taxes, that Nigerians pay, we've been worse off for it. What we have are decrepit, facilities here and there, non-functional infrastructure here and there, littered across the length and breadth of the country. So while this is a good thing, how is this particular development going to be any different?
Well, the fact remains that, like you rightly said, prior to now, we have about 62, if I am not mistaken, taxes are being collected across the nation. But the question is, how viable are those taxes? How viable are those collection processes? Have we been able to collect those 62 taxes? The answer is no. We have not been able to get those revenue from that direction. And I want to believe it's in light of those challenges that this committee have decided to consolidate, harmonize those ones that appears irrelevant, that are no longer in tune to current development, can be consolidated. It's better when we have them fewer, they will go after them, who can get the desired result, than having multiple taxes and multiple levies. At the end of it, what the government, through her agencies, are able to bring on board will not be up to 1/3. To me, is a welcome development. The ability of the committee to recommend that those taxes should be harmonized to 8 is a welcome development. And all they need to do is to put all the machineries in place, carry out adequate public enlightenment campaign, and also educate our regulators, the tax authorities, so that they will be able to move out there and make sure that these taxes are being collected, because no one have any excuse now. Prior to before 62, to some persons, it appears to be what we call double taxation. Why will you tax me here? You're taxing me here. But now that the taxes have now been streamlined from 62 to about 8, there won't be any escape route. You can't miss out. So that's my own thought in this regard.
There are other challenges which I want us to adequately touch on, as many of them as possible. We just talked about utilization therein because that has been one serious issue. Another one, again, is, the fact that we have quite the sketchy approach when it comes to data and adequately accounting for certain individuals, for certain incentives or for certain initiatives, as the case may be. Now, the tax boss, is looking to fashion this move in such a way that he would bring in said eligible individuals, as I mentioned earlier, putting that in giant air quote, So as far as the challenges go, adequately determining the right data for the people in this class or the people in this subset up until this very moment is a source for concern. What do you reckon?
Well, it is an area that the government...
Please, may I just pause you a little bit and add to that?
Okay.
In addition to that, there is also the concern of tax inequality, where you see that the halves or the divides in society, where you have the haves and the have-nots, the former being taxed unequally, as you were, when compared to the latter. Please address that as well.
Okay. The issue actually raised prior to the second one has to do with the data system, and that is an area where the government needs to invest heavily, at least to be able to have a holistic inventory of quote-unquote eligible individuals and corporate organization. I also want to say that with the help of the tax identification number, that could also help us to track individuals, within the Nigerian space. And with that, we'll be able to know and monitor whether these individuals have been fulfilling their obligations as far as is concerned. On the part of the corporate entities, I want to charge the Corporate Affairs Commission, which happens to be the agency saddled with the responsibility of regulating and registering of new companies. And on their own part, they are expected to, from time to time, give us a list of the registered companies. They are supposed to also collaborate with the regulator, that is the Federal Revenue Service. So the two agencies can work side by side, having the data of all registered companies here in Nigeria. And with that, the regulator, the Federal Revenue Service, can also use that to monitor among the data they have who have been paying taxes and who have not been paying taxes. So I want to believe from the angle of corporate entities, we may not have challenge because there is no company registered in Nigeria, even as a business name, even as a limited liability company that does not go through the Corporate Affairs Commission. So the onus lies on the regulators to collaborate with the Corporate Affairs Commission, have access to the database to be able to get the number of registered companies. No doubt, I know some of these companies have also gone in extinction. Some have also winded up. But then, when you have a detailed analysis of this company, they can be able to fish out those ones that have not been fully operational within the period. So for corporate entities, I don't see them having a challenge. The only area I exercise some little bit of respite or doubt is on the part of the individuals, because where do we get this data from? Where do we get this data from? So it's a challenge. It's a challenge. But then, in spite of the challenge too, there must also be a way out. So we need to start from somewhere. If we can drive that of the corporate entity, I want to believe that over time, the same energy, the same thoughts that was used in addressing that area can also be channeled with that of individuals. With individuals too, we can also do something meaningful, especially for those of us that work in corporate organizations. We can actually assess the record. The only challenge you can have is the man on the street. Where do you get the data from? But then I'm also aware that some of them also have association. Yes, the drivers, they have drivers association. So it's for the government agency to now begin to collaborate, begin to identify with this informal sector. Who are their leaders? Get them registered, get their list. From that, we can be able to address some of the challenge. Like I said, it's not just something that we can address overnight. It's a gradual step. Let's start with the corporate entities where we have accurate data, so to say. Then from there, we move to the individuals that work in corporate agencies. Then we now go to the informal sector. Like I said, for the informal sector, we need to identify with the association, we need to identify with the group head. With that, we can be able to bring all these eligible individuals and the corporate agencies into the tax net. And the resultant implication is that in no distant time, this much cry about shortage of revenue may begin to see the light of the day.
Now, about shortage of revenue, I want to follow up with that.
Right.
There's still some concerns with regards to what the Tax Reform Committee vis-a-vis this federal government wants to do at this point in time. Now, there have been, sundry overlapping taxes that have affected or that has had a negative ripple effect on businesses in general, as you were. We have, the sales tax, the value-added tax, mobile advertising charges, education levies, tenement rates, land use charges and parking fees. All of these together have been a bit of a financial strain, if you like, or have constituted some level of financial strain to some businesses and discouraged investment, discouraged entrepreneurship, and, the generality of the survival, per se, of small and medium scale enterprises. But the end goal of every taxation system or every tax system is revenue at the end of the day. And we have a revenue problem for all intents and purposes, which the government is trying to shore up. Now, with this particular plan, that's a plan of streamlining. There are some concerns as to whether or not it would affect, the ability to collect revenue, which is, takes me back to what I said I was going to address just a moment ago. So it takes me back to that as per, would this particular plan affect, that's the streamlining plan, would it affect the federal government's ability to generate revenue overall? Would it be reduced? Because, we have 60 plus and 200 plus as far as levies are concerned. Now you're shrinking it to about a single digit. What does that do for revenue generation?
Well, quickly, let me address that. From my own perspective, it would not in any way affect our revenue drive. All we need to do is to channel more strength, more energy, more resources to ensure that at the end of it all, the 8 harmonized taxes are being followed to the latter. With accurate data, we would. Because as it stands now, we have 82 or there are about 62 taxes. Are we really getting all that we're supposed to get? The answer is no. So why becoming a jack of all trades and master of none? So that's where I want to summarize that. So why having 62 taxes that are not really bringing the desired revenue? Why not think of harmonizing them, have them limited, then channel your resources towards ensuring that those limited taxes that we have will be able to drive home our concern. Remember, with those 62 taxes, you have agencies going about. At the end of it, those people going after those taxes end up not bringing anything, and costs are being incurred. So from the economical perspective, it's not really worthwhile. You are spending something and you're not getting something where we have over 62. So why not shrink it, consolidate it to 8, then channel your resources toward that regard, and you'll be able to get some. The other issue you raised has to do with the incentive that the government is trying to give, especially to small industries and entrepreneurship. I must commend the government through the Finance Act of 2023. A lot of things were actually captured in that act, which tend to promote business survival and business growth. Part of it is that for companies regarded as small companies, because within the ambit of the Finance Act 23 as amended, which took effect from January 1, 2024, companies here in Nigeria are classified into 3 groups. We have what they call the small company. They have their revenue range between 0 to 25 million. Then we have the medium company whose revenue, annual turnover, ranges from 25 billion to 99.999. Then the large company are those ones whose annual turnover is in excess of 100 million. So the Act have been able to provide an incentive to small companies. So which means that as a registered company with Corporate Affairs Commission doing business here in Nigeria, if your annual turnover falls within the range of 0 to 25 million, then you actually been exempted from what you call company income tax, CIT. In addition to that, too, you also been exempted from education tax. To me, it's actually a welcome development on the part of government to actually promote small-scale businesses and indoors. Because when you look at it holistically, who are those that their annual turnover ranges between 0 and 25? You see those are the informal sector, the entrepreneurship. So I think government is doing well. The only area you talked about was the issue of inequality. Yes, life is not equal. There is no how you do your tax system and everybody will also smile. But the fact remains that Nigeria, at its stand, is trying to promote a small-scale industry. They are trying to promote entrepreneurship. And how can we do all of these things if we are not giving them that desired support? So as a government, if we cannot give them capital to run their business, why can't we give them this incentive on the premises that over time, these small companies will be able to grow and step to the next level, which is the medium size. And with adequate support again, they could also be able to grow to become the large company. That is when the government can actually reap. And I think that is the idea behind the job being done by the Tax Reform Committee. So why not allow the small companies to breathe? Let them breathe. If they're able to grow over the time, the government can now come and reach. So to me, it's an investment at the long run. It's not just a short-term investment that we want to reap now. So let's give them a breathing space for them to strive, for their businesses to strive, to grow. Then we can now come. Those taxes that have not been able to pay, we can now come after them by way of company income tax at 20% for middle size or 30% of the accessible profit when they become large. So it's a welcome development and is a long-term objective that the government want to achieve.
You say so, but there's some, contrary views with regards to this. Well, not particularly contrary, but, some worry, if you want to put it that way, about these various incentives that the government is giving to, individuals and businesses alike to, give them, if you like, some breath of fresh air. Now, one of which, or some of which, are zero-rated VAT, an improved incentives regime to also promote export and goods, services, intellectual property, tax relief for private sector employers in respect of wage awards and transport subsidies provided for their employees, tax relief for companies or to companies that generate incremental employment and retain such employees for a minimum of 3 years. Now, these are just a few of the others. The question that some stakeholders are asking, or some suggestions, if you like, that they're putting forward is it not, wouldn't it be prudent, wouldn't it be circumspect if the federal government treads carefully so as not to over-incentivize and then, sell themselves short, as it were? Do you share the sentiment?
I do not. I tend to differ from that individual's remark. Like I did say, investment could either take three shapes. You have what they call the short-term investment, the medium-term investment, and the long-term investment. So I'm of the opinion that the government is seeing things from the angle of long-term investment. Let's suffer now. Let's allow the small businesses to have a breath of fresh air, stabilize, and grow their businesses. Then at the long run, when they become big, like I said earlier, those incentives that they enjoy by virtue of not paying the company income tax, educational tax when they were small companies can now be raking via the company income tax at the rate of 30%. Yes, you have lost 0, but within a short span, if you provide what I would call the enabling environment, because part of this enabling environment has to do with tax incentive. It's not just something that is peculiar to Nigeria. If you travel all over the world, you also discover that most developing economies give incentive to small-scale companies or small-scale enterprises, because the idea is for them to have a sustainable growth, bearing in mind that this sector happens to be the largest employer of labor. So putting much pressure on them in the area of taxes is like trying to push the so-called unemployed youth to the labor market. So why not give them a sense of belonging so that they can be able to strive? When they strive, like I said, at the long run, they'll pay their taxes. And currently, they're also providing a form of employment, which ordinarily government have not been able to. So it's a win-win affair that the government want to achieve. Let me allow you to get some fresh air. Over time, I can now come and say, okay, it's time for you to give a pat at the back, having also given you some form of relief at the initial stage. So I still maintain that this is a long-term investment, is a welcome idea. It's for those out there to see things beyond their nose. Don't just consider today. Yes, today we know things are hard, but then let's allow this policy to see the light of day in no distant time. In addition to providing that desired enabling environment, things will certainly turn around. And this yearning for revenue collection will be a thing of the past.
Now, I'm going to harp on your point there, the phrase you mentioned, that's enabling environment,
Certainly.
which is quite the important issue as far as any entity that's doing business is concerned, or any sovereign state, as you were, that's doing business is concerned. In our case, we have all of these lofty plans, which are very good, set in motion. Following what you just said now, what does this mean, or what sort of impact, if you like, would this have on our ease of doing business, continentally and internationally? Because, for all intents and purposes, we've had a not so, suffice it to use the word, palatable showing on the index as far as the EODB is concerned. Your thoughts?
The fact remains that there are a lot of things that the government need to do as far as providing that desired enabling environment is concerned, because those are the things that will also help the businesses to thrive. More importantly, the issue of energy. Energy is not negotiable because they need light to run their businesses. Currently, a liter of PMS is soaring high, well above 1,300, 1,400 per liter, depending on your area of location. So I want to charge the government that the environment need to be enabling. There should be adequate provision of power or energy, such that those businesses can leverage on that to run their businesses. You cannot tell somebody who probably is doing organizer business on the street, it doesn't make use of light. And even to have access to the PMS is like asking the horse to pass through the eye of a needle. So the government, I want to charge them that they should make these things available. There should be power, there should be fuel. It's something that we need to walk in freely and have access to without going through Herculean task. Security is also not negotiable. Government have been going about talking about foreign direct investment. Very key, very, very essential. Yeah, because foreign direct investment will also help to complement these shortfalls, and at the long run, revenue will come. But then the environment must be enabling. Security is not negotiable. Lives and properties must be secured in order to get that desired yearning that we are asking for at the long run. The issue of good roads is also not negotiable. So government should, as far as I am concerned, provide those basic facilities that can actually make businesses to thrive. Once again, the issue of power, energy, fuel, security, good road, and other basic infrastructure. Because one thing I've known about Nigerians, we are one of the most hardworking group of persons in the whole world. Nigerians can cope in any system you find themselves. But then, why not complement their own effort by providing that desired enabling environment? If you have that, over time, Nigeria would turn things, we Nigerians will turn things around. And when things are turned around, the economy is booming, there is a level of stability, then government will now see those to go after and get the taxes, which will also help to boost the investment. So the issue of enabling environment is not negotiable. I stand on that the environment must be enabling so that small businesses, alongside even the big businesses, can also thrive.
Now, let's talk briefly about our position fiscally, that's our fiscal position, which, many people playing in the sector know that it's quite poor. And then we'll also touch on very briefly about the collaboration with the states governors, or the states as it were, in the entire federation. But not before we remind you that you're still watching Market Insight this beautiful Monday morning, and we're talking about Nigeria's plan, or the federal government's plan, to widen the tax net and base, bringing in more taxable entities and individuals into the bracket, as it were. We're talking about the implications of this economically. And we have been speaking with, this morning, Mr. Kingsley Ndubueze A. He is a public affairs analyst, an author, a scholar, and a researcher, giving us his thoughts so far on the issues. Now, Mr. Ayoze, let's round up right now with this issue of our fiscal position.
Okay.
The nation's revenue to gross domestic product, GDP that is, stood at 9.4% last year. Right, but it was a decline from 10.9% 2 years before that. That's 2021. This is according to the IMF, by the way. Now, South Africa, their revenue to GDP stood at 25.1%. Ghana had its standing at 14%. Rwanda and Kenya, respectively, had 24% and 14.3%. This is according to the World Bank. Now, speaking about our debt, we had our public debt standing at 121 trillion naira in the first quarter of this year. This is well up from 97.34 from last year. That's the end of last year, the last quarter of last year. Now get this, it is the first in 23 years to have this sort of debt problem. Now, while our revenue to GDP ratio has grown, it's still, a bit lower than it was 15 years ago. The result of this is that Nigeria, as it were, spends far less per capita, as it were, comparatively to its neighbors on the continent and beyond, on its citizens, with a fraction of its revenue. That is really problematic. What is the issue here, really, and how do we get around it?
Well, the issue to this, I know you're looking at it from the angle of revenue shortage. I'm of the opinion that Nigeria must address the issue of corruption. Corruption is an ill wind that blows no one any good, and is a cankerworm that have actually eaten deep into our system. The government should, as far as I'm concerned, ensure that whatever that is due to the populace is made available to them, vis-a-vis the provision of infrastructures, vis-a-vis provision of palliative, if you may call it, because some of these things do not really get to the target audience. And that is why you are having such a abysmal figure of revenue to GDP, giving us about 9.1 or thereabouts, because we are not feeling the impact on the populace. The essence of governance is to put smile on the individuals. So if at the end of it all, the masses are not getting the desired returns expected of them by way of good governance, then we'll still come back singing the same song.
Right.
And which is what I want to address, that to get these things out of this number, Nigerian government must fight and address corruption, such that whatever the government is releasing is actually getting to the target audience. On that, I have to stop there. But I must also commend them. So far, the anti-corruption agencies have been trying their best, but a lot still need to be done, so that the revenues, the infrastructures are actually getting to the desired target audience.
All right. Now, on a final note, as I mentioned earlier, there is the plan to collaborate with state governors, or with states across the federation. So in your view, how do you see this panning out with regards to the success of this process and or the stifling of the process? Because, bureaucratic red tape and niceties in some cases can, come into play and upset the apple cart. What do you reckon?
Well, I think the federal government has a lot to do in this regard, because by this collaboration, more or less, you are trying to reduce the revenue that is accruable to states, no doubt, because some of these revenues or levies, if you ask, taxes, has to do with kiosks, wheelbarrow taxes, and animal sales and produce taxes, they are the ones collectible at the state level. So with this collaboration, it's as if the government, federal government, is trying to reduce the income. So the both governments should synergize. They should talk heart to heart. And for this shortfall, maybe the government can think of increasing the allocation that is coming from the federal to state. My only worry, my only challenge, is not as if it's a challenge, so to say, is based on this issue of local government autonomy. You know, recently there was a verdict delivered by Honorable Justice Igwem, if I'm not mistaken about the name, and the ruling, which was done by a 7-man committee, was based on the fact that henceforth the Akatajara have been given a marching order that local government allocation should be sent straight to them, as against the practice where it was sent to the state. Even the state could spend on their behalf, or the state will not transfer to them. So I want to see that the state government may not really take this lightly.
You do know that the state governors, some state governors,
Yes,
fought that particular ruling, even
exactly,
though it was already pronounced,
exactly,
by a court of competent jurisdiction, as it were, which is why I asked that question.
Yes.
Them being involved in this process,
Yes.
do you actually see it being seamless?
Well, I must say that it's not going to be an easy ride, because life is about give and take. On the part of the state governors, they would have said, oh, this one that we are leveraging on prior to now, you have removed it from us, and you are now coming to, so what do we stand to gain? But it's not left for the image makers and the policy makers at the federal level to begin to have a one-on-one talk with the state government and think of how this shortfall, accruable to state, can also be augmented. Yes, it's not going to be an easy ride, but we all are one. We are one government. Our agenda and policy is to serve the masses. So it's left for the federal government to actually, through moral tuition and other forms of dialogue, to get their buy-in and ensure that this does not suffer any setback.
Well, on that note, we will call time on the program this morning. But yes, you have been watching Market Insight on Souk News Television, and we have been talking about the federal government's plan through the Tax Reform Committee, led by Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, to tidy up the system, if you like, simplify it, harmonize it, and also to bring in more, in their words, eligible individuals and entities into the tax bracket, to make sure that the revenue plans are met, and the obligations, the financial obligations to citizens are also met. More conversations about this would definitely keep going on. But however, we have, talked a little bit about what it would mean for the economy, what it would mean for businesses, what it would mean for, the entire polity, as it were, seeing as the federal government is making this move at this time. And speaking about the timing, well, our guest has said that the timing is in order, even though that was part of the, different concerns held by stakeholders with pretty loud voices as far as the economy is concerned. But of course, we would love to continue the conversation, but time wouldn't let us go on. But we say thank you for joining us on the program this morning. And once again, we say thank you to Mr. Ayozie Kingsley for coming by.
It's my pleasure. Thank you once again for having me.
Thank you very much indeed. He is a public affairs analyst, an author, scholar, and a researcher, giving us his thoughts so far on the issues on the front burner. That's it. But before we go, let's take a quick look at what it looks like on the currency, or rather at the currency market today, Monday, the 30th of September 2024. Now, on the official market, the Naira dollar trade is going at 1,685 Naira. The pound sterling is trading at 2,290 Naira. The euro, 1,915 Naira. On the parallel market elsewhere, the dollar to the Naira is trading at 1,700 Naira. The pound sterling, 2,265 Naira. And the euros at 1,860 Naira. So that's useful information you can, or you have right now, the tip of your fingers as far as the currency market is concerned. Many thanks again for watching Market Insight today. It comes your way again tomorrow. But in the meantime, stay very close to your sets because at the top of the hour, we'll bring you the news updates. I am David Chiedu. Have a good day.